Okay, I need to tell all of you something. I went down a rabbit hole, and not a conspiracy rabbit hole, not a the government is hiding something rabbit hole, just a regular, completely avoidable, absolutely should have gone to bed 2 hours ago rabbit hole. I was watching old wrestling clips, and before you say anything, I know. But here's the thing. This wasn't nostalgia browsing. This wasn't, oh, let me see what The Rock looked like back in 98. This was research. Legitimate, documented, for the podcast research that just happened to start at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday and end somewhere around 2 a.m. with me watching a man in a diaper fight a 7-foot giant over a championship belt. And I felt nothing but pure joy. Because, as most of you know, I'm a 90s kid. The Attitude Era was my era. Monday Night Raw was my show. I was there live every single week watching Stone Cold and The Rock and D-Generation X and The Undertaker and all of it. And I thought I was just watching wrestling. Turns out I was watching a documentary. I just didn't know it yet. Because somewhere in that rabbit hole, something finally clicked. Not like a gentle realization, but more like a stone cold stunner. Out of nowhere, you didn't see it coming. Your teeth snap together and you're on the mat staring at the ceiling lights, wondering what just happened. Wrestling in the 90s wasn't just entertainment, it was a mirror. An uncomfortably accurate, weirdly specific, somehow nobody was talking about this mirror of exactly what was happening in American culture. In real time. Every single Monday night. The boss who abuses his power and faces zero consequences? That's your actual boss. The working class guy who has had enough and flips the entire table? That's a generation of Americans who were told to just sit down, be grateful, and trust the system. And finally said no. The invasion of outsiders threatening to destroy everything familiar? That is every single culture war argument of the 1990s. In spandex. With entrance music. The celebrity who is beloved for decades and then turns villain the exact moment they get too much unchecked power? Dude, that's just called Tuesday. Wrestling wasn't predicting the future, wrestling was reporting the present. Every single Monday night to 15 million people who thought they were just watching fake fighting. But it wasn't fake. It was the most honest thing on television. And I should know. I watched every second of it. So allow me to introduce myself. I'm Nate, the man who watched 4 hours of 1998 Raw on a Tuesday night and called it a business expense. I'm Nate, a man who once knew every word of The Rock's Know Your Role promo, and if given just 30 seconds, could still deliver it from memory. I'm Nate, your resident average Joe, and I am telling you, the Attitude Era was telling us everything. Welcome to Checkpoint Thursday. Today, we talk about what WWE was actually telling us and why nobody was paying attention. Quick baseline for anyone who wasn't watching in the 90s, or who was watching and thought it was just large men pretending to hurt each other, which, fair, but also you missed everything. The Monday Night Wars, 1995 to 2001, 6 years, 2 wrestling companies, 1 time slot, every single Monday night. WWF, the World Wrestling Federation, owned by Vince McMahon, the scrappy American underdog turned corporate empire. And WCW, World Championship Wrestling, owned by Ted Turner, the billionaire cable news mogul who bought a wrestling company specifically to spite Vince McMahon. Ted Turner saw Vince McMahon succeeding and said, I want to destroy that man, and then spent millions of dollars trying to do it via professional wrestling. And I just want to pause on that for a hot second. Ted Turner, the man who founded CNN, the man who donated $1 billion to the United Nations, His response to a personal grudge was to buy a wrestling promotion and declare war. Ted Turner, $1 billion to the UN. Also, let me construct an army of large men in tights to settle this beef. Absolutely valid. I respect the range, Ted. So these two companies go head to head every single Monday night for 6 years. And at their peak, over 10 million people were tuning in every single week. Wrestling was on magazine covers. Wrestlers were on talk shows. Stone Cold Steve Austin was on the cover of TV Guide. Mick Foley, a man whose entire character involved getting hit in the head with steel chairs, wrote a New York Times best-selling autobiography. Let me say that again. A man whose whole job was to be hit with steel chairs. New York Times bestseller. And not a bad Santa Claus either. That is not a niche product. That is culture. Now, here's the thing. Before wrestling figured out how to be a mirror, before it found the thing that made 15 million people show up each and every week, it was doing something very different. And I need to tell you what it was doing because it is important context. And also, it is one of the funniest things I have ever researched. In the early 90s, WWF was doing cartoon characters. And I don't mean cartoonish, I mean full cartoon. Characters whose entire personality was their occupation. There was a character called Repo Man. His whole deal? He repossessed things. He came to the ring and talked about repossessing your stuff. His entrance music had sound effects that sounded like a tow truck. In 1992, during a recession when people were actually losing their homes and their cars and everything they owned, someone in creative looked at the economic devastation happening to working families all over America and said, hey, what if we made a villain out of that guy? The guy taking their stuff. And then had a crowd full of those same working class people pay to come boo him. The self-awareness was not present. There was a character called the Goon. He was a hockey player. That was it. He played hockey and wrestling. His whole thing was just hockey. There was a character called Duke the Dumpster Drozy. He was a garbage man. He came to the ring pushing an actual garbage can. His finishing move was called the trash compactor. I want you to understand that creative meetings happened. Multiple people sat in a room. Someone said, hey, what if we have a garbage man? And multiple other people said, yes, wonderful, please proceed. And then they put this man on national television. In this same period, WCW was over there doing credible athletes and compelling storylines, and the audience, well, they noticed. By 1996, WWF was losing badly. There were genuine fears the company might fold. And Vince McMahon had a choice. Keep doing stuff like Repo Man, or figure out what the audience actually needed. And seeing as how WWE is still around today, he chose correctly. And what happened next, completely by accident, became one of the most honest pieces of cultural documentation of the entire decade. This episode of Checkpoint Thursday is brought to you by 316 Workplace Solutions. Are you tired of your corporate overlord making your life miserable? Are you watching your boss take credit for your work, slash your benefits, and show up to Monday morning all-hands meeting in a suit that costs more than your rent, while telling you the company needs to tighten its belt? 316 Workplace Solutions cannot legally advise you to drive a beer truck into the parking garage, but we can help you develop your anti-authority persona, fine-tune your catchphrase, and identify the precise moment, the exact incident when enough is enough. Our 3-step methodology: Step 1, stop asking for permission. Step 2, walk in like you own the place. Step 3, if anyone tries to stop you, hit them with a stunner. Step 3 is metaphorical, mostly. Warning: 316 Workplace Solutions is not responsible for the following side effects: HR escalation, security escort from the premises, colleagues chanting your name in the elevator, the middle finger becoming your default resting expression, Spontaneous desire to pour beer on your keyboard at 4:45 p.m. on a Friday. Stunner-related liability in 12 states. 316 Workplace Solutions. And that's the bottom line, because your performance review said so. June 1996, the King of the Ring tournament. A man named Steve Williams, who had been given the ring name the Ringmaster by WWF Creative, which tells you everything you need to know about where Creative's head was still at, beats Jake the Snake Roberts in the finals and grabs the microphone. Jake Roberts had been doing a religious redemption storyline talking about John 3:16. He was the good guy making good choices and following the righteous path. Very wholesome, very inspirational. Very not what this audience was in the mood for. And this bald Texas man looked at him and said, "You sit there and you thump your Bible and you say your prayers and it didn't get you anywhere. Talk about your Psalms, talk about John 3:16. Austin 3:16 says I just whipped your ass." The crowd lost their minds. And not because it was shocking, though it absolutely was, but because it was true. That promo wasn't really about Jake the Snake Roberts. It was about every authority figure that had ever told a working class person, if you just pray hard enough, work hard enough, keep your head down and trust the process, it'll all just work out for you. And Austin's answer, delivered with the energy of a man who had been hearing that his entire life and was done, was no. Hell no. I tried it your way. Here's where it got me, so I'm doing it my way now. The character that came out of that moment was surgical in its specificity. Blue collar, denim vest, beard, didn't shake hands, didn't play politics, didn't cooperate with management, didn't smile for the cameras. Just showed up and kicked people in the face on his own terms. And America, specifically working class America, completely lost it for this man. Merchandise sales in 1998 alone, $10 million worth of Austin 316 t-shirts. $10 million worth of people saying this. This is what I feel, and I have never seen anyone say it out loud like this before. Now, here's why that timing matters. 1996, the same year that promo happened, NAFTA had been law for just 2 years. Manufacturing jobs were leaving. The stock market was going insane. If you had money in the market, you were doing great. But if you were on a factory floor, you were watching your job get discussed in future tense and being told this was actually good for everyone. The economy was booming for some people, but for a huge portion of the country, that boom was happening somewhere else, to someone else, while they got told to just be patient. And every single Monday night, this bald Texas man showed up, told the billionaire who signed his checks to go to hell, cracked open a cold one, and won anyway. That's not entertainment. That's a pressure valve. That's 15 million people screaming on behalf of feelings they had no other outlet for. And here's the part that makes it perfect. The boss in this story was Vince McMahon, playing himself, the actual owner of the company, casting himself as the villain trying to keep the working man down. Vince McMahon essentially made a documentary about the American class divide, cast himself as the villain, then gave the working man a beer and a catchphrase and aired it every single Monday night. And people watched it for years. Every single week when Austin gave Vince the middle finger or hit him with a stunner or drove a cement truck to the ring and filled his expensive car with concrete. And I'm not making any of that up. That happened. He filled his boss's Corvette with concrete. And 15 million people lost their ever-loving minds with joy. Because somewhere in America, someone had always wanted to fill their boss's car up with concrete. Austin just did it on live TV for him. Now let me talk about what WCW was cooking. Because WCW's version of this was very different, and in some ways even more culturally precise. July of 96, Bash at the Beach. Hulk Hogan. Let me make sure you understand who Hulk Hogan was at this point in history. Hulk Hogan was Captain America, but real, but also not real. But culturally speaking, real in a way that almost nothing else was. He was red and yellow, he waved the American flag, he told kids to train, say their prayers, take their vitamins. He beat the bad guys every single time for over a decade. He was the hero of heroes. And then on live television at Bash at the Beach 96 with 40,000 people in the building and millions watching at home, he turned. He turned heel. Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, two former WWF guys, were standing in the ring. Randy Savage was on the mat, and Hulk Hogan, the most beloved man in wrestling, walked down to the ring, looked at the crowd, looked at the camera, and dropped the leg on his friend. He joined the heels. He formed the New World Order. The crowd threw garbage into the ring. Real garbage, cups, food, anything they had in their hands. Just launched it. Because they felt genuinely, personally betrayed by a fictitious character making a fictitious decision. That is extraordinary storytelling. You made 40,000 people feel real betrayal about a scripted event. And the reason they felt that betrayed is because it was tapping into something completely real. The NWO's entire premise: outsiders infiltrate a familiar institution and take it over from within. Former members of the old guard come back with a brand new agenda, new rules, and an explicit message. The old way is over. We don't respect what you built. We're the New World Order now. Now, 1996. What else is happening? The Telecommunications Act of 1996 just passed. Massive media consolidation begins. Companies are merging faster than anyone can process. Familiar things are being absorbed by larger, less familiar things. The internet is starting to restructure how information works. Old gatekeepers are losing their grip. New players keep showing up who explicitly do not respect the old rules. Globalization is rewiring entire industries. Things that had been stable for decades are suddenly not. And the emotion under all of it is the same exact emotion those 40,000 people felt when Hulk Hogan dropped the leg. Wait, I thought I knew what this was. I thought I understood the rules. I thought the good guys were the good guys. When did it change? And how did I miss it? The NWO became the most popular faction in wrestling almost immediately. They sold more merchandise than the heroes. Hollywood Hulk Hogan, the villain version, became more culturally iconic than hero Hulk Hogan had ever been. Because people wanted to join them even while hating them, which is exactly how cultural anxiety works in real life. The disruptive force is simultaneously terrifying and seductive. The thing threatening everything feels vital and exciting even as it burns your house down. WCW ran this angle for 4 years, and this is where the parallel gets uncomfortably specific. They ran it too damn long. The cool new outsiders became the establishment. The rebel faction got stale and bureaucratic and resistant to change. The characters who were supposed to represent vital disruption became the exact thing they had disrupted: an old guard protecting itself. And the audience, they turned on them for it, just like they turn on every movement that peaks and then calcifies. Every single time. Wrestling did not predict this pattern. Wrestling was the pattern on a compressed timeline in front of a live audience that told you immediately, loudly, and without mercy whether you'd gotten it right. And this is the one that really gets me. The Attitude Era, officially 97 to 2001, lines up almost perfectly with Clinton's second term. And when you put them side by side, the parallels are genuinely uncomfortable. Booming economy on paper, record stock market, low unemployment, Cold War over. America is the sole superpower on the planet. Everything should feel great, right? And underneath, institutional distrust at generational highs, and impeachment, a president whose personal behavior became a daily national obsession. The internet changing everything faster than anyone could adapt. Jerry Springer, Howard Stern, the beginning of reality television, the general cultural sense that every authority figure was probably lying about something, and the only honest people were the ones who admitted they didn't care about being respectable. One wrestling historian described it perfectly. The late 90s did not trust institutions. Popular entertainment often treated authority as a provocation, and WWF's Attitude Era product trusted nothing. It was sweaty and chaotic and in your face and deliberately transgressive and deeply suspicious of anyone who claimed to have good intentions, especially powerful people with good intentions. The hero, or the face in wrestling terms, was replaced almost entirely by the anti-hero. Stone Cold Steve Austin breaks rules constantly, assaults his boss, cheats, wins dirty. The crowd worshipped him. The Rock spends 40% of every promo describing how incredible The Rock is, in third person, with complete sincerity. The Rock says, "Know your role and shut your mouth." The crowd worships him. D-Generation X, Shawn Michaels, and Triple H, whose entire brand was being as inappropriate and juvenile as possible while making fun of anyone who represented authority or respectability. Their signature catchphrase involved suggesting that their opponents perform something anatomically ambitious. The crowd worshipped them. This is the product that beat WCW. This is what 15 million people chose every single Monday night. And here's the thing I want you to sit with. These characters aren't heroes. They're coping mechanisms. When a generation grows up and figures out that the institutions they were taught to trust don't operate the way they were told, when they realize the game is rigged and the good guys don't always win, and working hard and following the rules isn't actually a guarantee of literally anything, you stop looking for clean heroes. Clean heroes feel naive. Clean heroes feel like a lie dressed up in a cape. You start looking for someone who will fight dirty against dirty fighters, someone who knows the system is broken and doesn't pretend otherwise, someone who wins by refusing to lose, not by being noble. And you watch them flip the table every Monday. Because in real life, the table doesn't get flipped. In real life, you go to work on Tuesday. But on Monday night, for 3 hours, the table gets flipped. And that means something. That means a hell of a lot, actually. And here's what I want you to walk away from this episode with. Wrestling is scripted. Everyone knows wrestling is scripted. The outcomes are scripted, the blood is theatrical, the rivalries are written by a team of writers in a room. And somehow, for 6 years in the 90s, it told the truth about American culture better than almost anything else on TV at the time. Because wrestling understood something about audiences that most media hadn't figured out yet. People don't just want to be entertained. They want to see their lives reflected back at them. They want their frustrations named out loud by someone who isn't going to get in trouble for naming them. They want to watch someone who feels what they feel walk into a room full of people who just don't respect them and make them regret it. And then they want to scream about it with 15,000 other people who feel the exact same way. That is not nothing. That is community. That is catharsis. That is, and I'm going to say this with complete sincerity, art. Even if the art involves a man getting hit with a steel chair and selling it like he's been shot by a cannon. The reason Repo Man failed and Stone Cold Steve Austin succeeded is not a mystery. Repo Man treated the audience as observers. Stone Cold treated the audience as participants in something that mattered to them. One was a character. One was a mirror. And when you make people feel seen, even in a 20 by 20 wrestling ring on cable television, even through spandex and pyrotechnics and a man driving a cement truck to work, they show up every week for years. The writers of the Attitude Era probably didn't sit in a room and say, "We are going to create a document of late 20th century American working class anxiety." They just sat in a room and said, "What do people need right now?" And they got the answer right. That's the whole lesson. Figure out what people actually need. Give it to them honestly. They'll show up every Monday night. And that's going to do it for this edition of Checkpoint Thursday. WWE was telling us everything. The working class rebellion, the invasion anxiety, the anti-hero replacing the hero because the hero kept losing in real life. The boss as the villain, the system as the opponent, the ring as the one place where you actually got to win. All of it, every Monday night, in spandex and pyrotechnics. And we called it Guilty Pleasure TV. It was a mirror. Go back and watch some old Attitude Era footage this week. I'm serious. Watch it differently this time. Every promo is a speech. Every heel turn is a culture war moment in miniature. Every Austin beer chug is a raised middle finger to something real and specific. It's all there. We just weren't paying attention. And then come find us over in the lobby. That's the Average Joe Nerdcast private Facebook group. And then tell me your Attitude Era moment. The match, the promo, the character that hit different when you were a kid. I want to know it all. Email us at averagejoenerdcast@gmail.com and subscribe wherever you're listening. Leave a review if you've got 2 minutes and tell one person about this show. I've been Nate. Stay gold, nerd bold. And that's the bottom line because the Average Joe said so.
Game over.